Thank you so much for tapping play on this episode of the Juggle is Real podcast. I'm Andryanna, and I'm so thrilled that you are here for part two of this two-part series where I am breaking down my personal experience of attending the Academy in the City event hosted by Jillian Harris and the Atelier Collective. And if you listen to part one, you know that I had an absolutely amazing time. And now I'm not saying that you have to listen to part one in order to listen to part two, but you might want to check it out because in that episode, I was really looking at what allowed me to say yes, to be able to attend and fully immerse myself and completely enjoy the experience without feeling guilt, without judging myself, without listening to the naysayers or any external circumstance. And so that started 4 years ago when I attended a different Atelier event. And then it kind of brings us through to being able to attend this Academy in the City in Toronto and what my gala evening experience was like, including meeting Jillian Harris. For this part two episode, we're going to dive into the conference portion, the day two portion of the event. And really the reason why I want to record this episode, the reason why I want to share is to provide you with my key takeaways with the hope of igniting something within yourself. The key theme of the event was to ignite your spark, and I want to share so that you can do that as well. I want to encourage you to turn inward and ask yourself questions and see what comes up, whether it's inspiration and ideas or judgments and how you can dig deeper for that inner sense of belonging that we talked about in part one. And I also want to provide you with incredible advice. Some of the biggest, brightest, and best women and females and people in business were at this event and speaking. And so I want to walk you through my key takeaways from each speaker so that you can take that information and ignite your spark from within. So if that sounds good, let's get started. Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. Before we get into today's episode, may I remind you that Mother's Day is coming, and I have just the thing that you and all the busy women in your life need. It's the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner, your solution to reclaiming me time amidst life's chaos. Join countless others in prioritizing your well-being with this comprehensive planner. Make every day count with 30-day plans to prioritize self-love and purpose within 5 pillars. Complete with daily self-care commitments, intentional goal setting, and gratitude prompts, you'll reclaim control over your life with more joy and fun amidst the chaos. It's the ultimate tool to gain more ease, lose the stress, and tap into genuine self-care to support you through it all. And honestly, it's the perfect idea for Mother's Day. I invite you to pick it up for yourself and gift this planner to all the busy women in your life because you all deserve this level of care for yourselves. Don't wait, order now on Amazon and start making every day a win. You are so worthy of the care you invest in yourself, and your friends are too. The juggle is real, but so is the peace that comes from prioritizing self-care, allowing you to tackle life's challenges with grace and energy. The Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner is available on Amazon now, and there is a link in the notes for this podcast episode. Pick it up today. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, my friend. So I've got my book that I received at the event. It's called Academy in the City: Dreams Found Inside 2024. And it's this beautiful, beautiful book designed by Emma Allen Design Studio. It has this blue floral pattern, and that is what was mimicked at the event with the beautiful backdrop. And then the bags that were part of the goodie bags, the tote bags from Poppy and Peonies that were given to all attendees. I'm holding it in my hands. And I alluded to this in part one. I took lots of notes. And I took notes so that I could come back to them, so that I could re-immerse myself in this experience. But mostly, I took the notes to share with you so that you could have a little bit of this experience and kind of see it through my lens in the key takeaways that I received. I also have this little newspaper in front of me, and this was sort of what was used as the program for the event. The event was, of course, hosted by the Atelier Collective and Jillian Harris, and they do details so exceptionally well. They hire the absolute biggest, brightest, and best. And I'm telling you, from the event coordinator and planner to the florist to the food to all of those little details were absolutely stunning. And so in this opening address that was written by Jillian, by Ange, and Taryn, all co-hosts, they say that the purpose of this event is to ignite that spark, to come together from the attendees to the pop-up markets to the speakers and all the brand partners to move the needle in what is meant for your soul, to ignite your spark, to nurture your creativity, to expand your community, and most importantly, to support one another. And this really ties into what Jillian Harris said in her opening address, because she both had a short opening address and then she had a keynote at the very end of the day. And really her purpose for wanting to co-host this event was to bring people together in the spirit of collaboration. And so she says, and I quote, "I'm not interested in competing with anyone. I want everyone to make it." And she says that someone named Erica from Calgary sort of shared that information with her, and she really took it on. And so that was the goal. And that was the point of the Academy in the City of the event, to come together with the highest intention of collaboration and community. Nothing to do with competition, nothing to do with the negative vibes or those judgments that might creep up. And so you'll see that it's weaved in all of the speakers who took the stage, that this theme of both inner belonging and community really is at the heart of everything. And to ignite your inner spark, you have to feel that inner sense of belonging. You have to be able to tap into that spark, that joy, in order to receive the ideas and receive that inspiration, to be able to propel yourself to that next level, to say, I'm scared, I'm feeling that fear, but I'm going to do it anyway, and push yourself through to reach that next level. And I'm not saying you have to hustle, and I'm not saying you have to grind. And you'll hear a little bit more about how Jillian has really taken that on, the themes of the non-hustle culture, which I'm so excited about, because that's what I'm all about. But you'll see how it comes together. So I'm going to open up my little newspaper here, and I'm going to open up my notes, and I want to take you through. But before I begin, just to give you a sense of who was at the event and what speakers I'm going to be talking about, I did mention, of course, Jillian, Ange, and Taryn were the co-hosts of the event. The incredible Melissa Leong was the event MC. She was our host and really guided us through in the best possible way of making sure that everyone was introduced beautifully. She had really beautiful anecdotes throughout. She was doing some interviews for some panels, and she really brought a beautiful, kind, loving, inclusive energy to the event. So Melissa, amazing, incredible job. There were some keynotes, some conversations, and some speeches. The first was from Hina Khan. Next was from Coach Raia Carey. After that, there was a conversation that Melissa led with Vanessa Fracheboud of Mandy's Salads. After that, we had our lunch, followed by an incredible discussion from how to unlock your aesthetic advantage by Pauline Brown. And this was one of the highlights of the day for me, I must say. She was so brilliant. After that, there was a keynote from Melodie Reynolds, who is the founder of Elate Cosmetics. After that was a panel that was led by Melissa with some Jillian Academy graduates that included Natalie Dusome, who's the founder of Poppy and Peonies, Anne Mock, who is a blind storyteller, and Breanne Allarie, who is a content creator from Canada. And then after that was a conversation that was also guided through by Melissa with Avery Francis, who is an HR expert. She runs her own company called, I believe it's called In Bloom. And she also is the new host of the Girl Boss podcast. After that, we had a little happy hour. It was so fun. There was wine service, there was art hors d'oeuvres. We went back to the beauty bar and the pop-up market. And then to end and cap off the evening was our keynote address from Jillian Harris. So, this was a full day event. Doors opened at 8:30. The opening remarks were at 9:30, and we were there till 7 p.m. So in an effort to keep things brief, I will do my best at really just sharing what my key takeaways were. So you'll notice that I might skim through it at a rapid pace, but you can always come back to this. And I invite you, once you know who these people are, once you know what these key takeaways are, I invite you to maybe go back or do a Google search or look these people up on Instagram and follow them and learn about the incredible things that they're doing so that you can take these takeaways, these pieces of advice, follow along in their journey and really implement it, really take action and see how you can apply it in your own life when it comes to igniting your own spark and your inner sense of belonging. So yes, the theme was to ignite your spark within. And after the opening address, we got a keynote from the incredible, the incomparable coach, peak performance coach, Hina Khan. And I don't know if I should say this. I mean, I don't want to gatekeep here, but I have my 100th episode coming up next week. And Hina is my guest for that episode. Please come and tune in because she is the reason why the Juggle is Real podcast is here. She is my coach. She is my mentor, and she blew her keynote out of the water. And let me tell you, I did not even know she was going to be speaking at this event when I got my tickets. It wasn't until maybe about a month before that they announced these keynotes. And I was like, come on, this is amazing. So I will say that that Hina is so inspiring all of the time. I get to listen to her rise calls at 6 a.m. every morning. But this event, the energy, being in the room and really focusing inward, I was bawling. I was weeping, you guys. I was like in tears. She had us write an exercise following the prompt of, what would you really love? Actually, what is it? If anything is possible, I would love. And then we free form, wrote out whatever came to us, pushed through the resistance. It was a 4-minute exercise. If anything is possible, I would love. And that had me in tears, my friends. What I wrote down, oh my gosh, I hope to share it with you soon because I was a bawling, happy, joyful wreck. But what Hina said in her keynote address is that there is a patterning within you. There is something bigger and larger than you are right now. So in all of us, in you who's listening, in me, in every single one, there is a patterning within us. Like an acorn, and she used this analogy, like an acorn, the patterning is your soul's fingerprint. And so if you look at an acorn, I mean, what is this little thing, right? This little acorn. Within the acorn is the potential to be this gorgeous, beautiful, tall, blossoming oak tree, right? All comes from this tiny little acorn. It has the patterning within it to become the oak tree. And so her address really focused on this process of how does the acorn become the oak tree, right? It doesn't just happen overnight. And what she says and what Hina says is that growth happens in the dark. And one of the biggest takeaways and one of the quotes that I wrote down from her is that I am here to remind you of your divinity so you can claim your destiny. Isn't that beautiful? I am here to remind you of your divinity so that you can claim your destiny. And she said that when you take a step, the next step will be shown to you. But it cannot happen if you do not take the step. So this comes back to, if you're asking yourself and you're turning inward and you're saying like, what would I love? If anything is possible, what would I love? And you might not know the how, like, how am I going to get that? Or, why me? I am not worthy of those things. And what Hina is saying is that you have to take the first step. It might be one email, it might be one call, it might be saying no to someone, it might be saying yes to an opportunity, but you have to take one step in order for the next step to be shown. You're not necessarily going to know absolutely every single thing and how it's all going to turn out, but the journey is the manifestation. And that's something else that Hina says. So going through and taking those steps is what's going to allow you to see what you should do next and what you should do next. And so I'll close on that by saying that to open the day with the theme of igniting your inner spark, Hina said, this is not about igniting a spark. This is about creating a raging fire. So sure, ignite that spark, but that's not what we're doing here. We are going to burn the whole place down so that you can achieve exactly what you were destined to become. Whew. Started off with a bang, my friends. We started off with a bang. The next speaker is someone whom I have seen on social media, whom I've heard great things about, but never had the opportunity to hear from in a live setting. And that speaker was Coach Carey, Coach Raia Carey, who really brought so much light and beautiful energy to the stage. Her address was actually called The Journey to Inner Belonging. So she really took this theme that I have taken away as one of the biggest elements that I am bringing to my life now, thanks to the Academy in the City event. And she really brought us through this process of how to find that inner sense of belonging. And she honestly, she took her whatever it was, like short amount of time, and she brought us through so many different things. But some of the highlights and my key takeaways from Coach Carey's address to the audience was that unfulfillment is the emotion right next to shame. Unfulfillment is the emotion right next to shame. And belonging is something that can only come from within. And what Coach Carey says is that joy is something that must be practiced. You must practice joy every single day. And that joy is something that you give to yourself. Isn't that beautiful? Joy is an experience that you allow. It is something that you give and that you yourself receive. And the compensation is to also experience someone else's joy, to be able to experience joy with others. And sometimes, the analogy of giving a gift. Well, sometimes it's better for the person who's giving the gift than actually the person who's receiving, because you're experiencing joy and you're practicing joy through experiencing joy through someone else. Just to come back to that one more time as I close out, is that joy is one of the fastest ways we can shift our energy. Oftentimes, people confuse joy with happiness, but joy is something you give yourself. Happiness you can find in almost everything. So practicing joy and embracing stress, those were my key takeaways from Coach Carey. Such a beautiful talk. After that talk from Coach Carey, we were in conversation with Vanessa Fracheboud of Mandy Salads. If you don't know Mandy Salads, they are a franchise that is popping up. They started in Montreal. They now have a number of locations in Toronto, and they have plans to expand throughout Canada and in North America. If you've been to one of their restaurants, they have an absolutely exquisite way of doing things. Not only is their food prepared in the most beautiful way with fresh ingredients and really interesting combinations, but the aesthetic, the experience of going into one of the restaurants is really a beautiful thing. And so Vanessa is the CEO of Mandy Salads, and she helped us look at what to include in a strategy. And so looking at she is a very successful CEO of this very successful brand. She came from being in very C-suite, high-level roles for other large brands as well. And so what she says when you're looking to develop a strategy, what we should look at is choosing what not to do. And so she likened it, and she gave this analogy of a caprese salad. So it's funny because, she's Mandy Salads and she's giving a salad analogy. I'm sure that was very well thought out. But what she says in terms of looking at your strategy and the analogy of a caprese salad, if you've ever had one, essentially you have buffalo mozzarella, you have fresh tomatoes, and you have some fresh basil. And then perhaps there's a drizzle of olive oil. You might add some salt and pepper to season it. But this caprese salad is so beautiful, so delicious, and so amazing, but there's really hardly anything to it, right? There's just a few key pieces, a few key ingredients that when combined create this delicious, delicious dish. And so what she's saying is less is more. Just a few key ingredients, few key pieces within your strategy can make a big impact. She also says then when we're looking at choosing what not to do, we are left with those few key pieces and putting your efforts into what is most important for her and for Mandy Salads. It's the people, the team, and their time. Putting their efforts into what's most important is going to then allow for the largest return on that investment. So really focusing on their team and their people, really focusing on how they are investing their time is going to then provide them with the best outcomes. And to that point of putting your efforts into what's most important, when we look to focusing on our team and our people and our audience and our ideal customer and who is really supporting us, the sum of the whole is greater than the individual parts. And so she says, and I'll quote, she says, why you do things should never change, but what and how should continuously change. And she was quoting David Siegel, who is the founder of David's Tea. And so I'll say that again. Why you do things should never change. So this is your mission, your purpose for being in business, or your purpose for what it is that you're trying to achieve. Your why should never change, but the what and the how should continuously change. And so looking at those key pieces within your strategy to see what is most important to focus on. Embracing innovation fearlessly, being bold and courageous, and surrounding yourself with great people. And again, another food analogy, she says, like a cheese board and fine wine, together they create this beautiful experience. And so that was sort of my key takeaways from Vanessa's chat in conversation with Melissa Leong. She also, I'll say she has 2 children under 3. She has some very important values that create the balance that she seeks in life. So for instance, she goes to the gym every day. She doesn't answer emails at night or look at her phone for 2 emails when she gets home at the end of the day, so that she can focus on her family, focus on herself. And she suggests that her teammates and that all people in business do the same thing. Really, really inspiring to hear from her. after our conversation with Vanessa, we had a lunch. It was a beautiful plated lunch. And I will say that at the beginning of the event, before things got started, there was a breakfast bar. There was sort of a buffet where the pop-up market was, so we could look at these Canadian vendors. We could grab a bite to eat for breakfast. Then there were snacks sort of dispersed, little baggies with little snacks that were provided throughout the morning. Our lunch was a plated lunch, and depending on dietary restrictions, I received a wonderful chicken dish. It had mashed sweet potato. It was very, very lovely and filling. After lunch, we had the opportunity to go back to the pop-up market, meet some new people, do a little networking. There was a beauty bar there set up by Fresh Face with Elate Cosmetics. And so we could touch up our makeup with these beautiful makeup artists and experts who could help us with that. And after lunch, we got to hear from one of the highlights of my day was Pauline Brown. And her keynote was on how to unlock your aesthetic advantage. And in this conversation, Pauline uses aesthetic intelligence and calls it the real AI, which I absolutely loved. But Pauline Brown, she has acquired, built, and led luxury global brands. And she joined the School of Harvard Business in 2016, where she introduced a new course called The Business of Aesthetics. And now she teaches at Columbia University. It was such a treat to have her in the room to share this information on the business of aesthetics. And it was such a highlight for me. She says that it's so important to appreciate the power of good taste, to be aligned with an inner value system. And she says, when we have the weight of all the world's issues, the quest is to feel more alive. And that is imperative. And actually, I will say, it was kind of interesting that the first part of the discussion with Pauline, I was like, this is kind of a downer, like she was going through all of the problems and the issues that the world is experiencing right now. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But what it really brings and holds true is that we really do have all these issues, and the weight of the world can sometimes feel very heavy. And so it is imperative to feel more alive. And through the aesthetic intelligence that we can bring to brands and our businesses and our experiences, we can support people in finding more joy, in being drawn to brands that create spaces to play, to be able to laugh, and to be able to have that happiness and experience joy. So she looks to aesthetics as being your taste, right? And so if you're not really quite sure, so she kind of explained this term as being the pleasure derived from perceiving an object or experience through the senses. So those desired emotions that you want to have, so that pleasure that you get, it's essentially your own personal taste, your aesthetic, and how you would perceive that experience or that product, that object, that service through your own senses and those desired emotions that you're looking to conjure up. And so she looked at why, we don't pay a premium to do certain things unless it really means something to us. And so she gave a number of examples of, one being, a tube of lipstick, a tube of red Chanel lipstick. Now, that is the number one lipstick sold on the market for 30, 40, 50 years. However, this tube of lipstick is, say, like $60, whereas the next leading brand, that tube of lipstick might be like $6, right? And so no one can even see, like, it's not like you get a little Chanel logo on your lips when you're putting the lipstick on. No one from the outset knows the difference between you wearing a $6 lipstick or you wearing a $60 lipstick. But people pay a premium to get that pleasure that's derived from receiving those desired emotions, having that experience that allows them to feel what it is that they're looking to feel. And so she notes that the key competitive advantages of aesthetic businesses are, and there's 4, is 1, they command premium prices and achieve higher margins. Two, they generate higher awareness and deeper loyalty, right? People are more proud to be loyal to these certain brands. Number three, they draw attention and admiration through earned media, because when you have these loyal customers and these people who are devoted to your brand, they're the ones selling for you, right? You hear of word of mouth marketing. Well, you can't pay for that, right? You have to actually have these loyal advocates who are willing to get the word out, share in their stories or share in their conversations, and actually give that earned media advantage. And then number four, the fourth competitive advantage of aesthetic businesses is that they become harder to replicate by nature. There's newer, cheaper, faster competitors out there. But even though there is the competition, these aesthetic brands are harder to replicate, right? There's never going to be another Chanel, right? There's never going to be another Porsche. Even though there are newer, cheaper, faster, and different things on the market, those who are loyal to those brands will be devoted to them. So she also says that aesthetic experiences are immersive and multi-sensory. So you're looking for cross-sensory experiences, and that affects our ability to enjoy and have that positive memory. And she also says too that when you're looking to the aesthetic experience, a lot of what you are looking for is that anticipation and the positive anticipation. So if you can even think to like going to buy a new phone, for instance, like if you are loyal to the Apple brand and you're like, I want the new iPhone, like, you know what that experience is going to be like. You're going to walk into an Apple store, you know what the store is going to look like, you know the aesthetic within it, right? It's very modern. The people are dressed a certain way, they act in a certain way, they support you in a certain way, you know what the product is that you're going to be receiving. A lot of that is that positive anticipation. And then you leave with the powerful memories having that aesthetic experience. It is immersive and it is multi-sensory. So I could go on. There's a lot more here. But Pauline, she was super, super, super inspiring. I loved being able to experience her brilliance in person. The next person who spoke was Melodie Reynolds. And she was so, so wonderful. She really had this shining empathy that shone through in such a relatable, honest, and just sincere way. And she is the founder of Elate Cosmetics, which is a sustainable brand. And she really came to terms with founding this company when she realized that, you know, the process and experience of getting a new lipstick is not necessarily about what it is that you're receiving. It's the experience. And she realized that when she would do that and when she would buy it, she was left with sort of this sense of unfulfillment, because it wasn't whether her lipstick was the right shade. It was about how she felt about herself. But buying something like a tube of lipstick really helped her feel and boost her self-confidence. But she realized that in buying one tube of lipstick, there was a whole lot of packaging, a whole lot of garbage, a whole lot of waste that came with that purchase. And so she really wanted to make sure that she developed this brand and created this company with products that had sustainability in mind, even more so than the average brand, and looking at ways that she can, you know, help us in tapping into our self-love, our self-worth, and our self-confidence without having that extra imprint, right? That eco footprint. And so what she says is that it's not about buying less. It's about breaking the perpetual cycle of overbuying and looking at products that make us feel good, but making a conscious choice and an effort to only purchase what it is that we really need. And treating that experience with reverence and with a ritual, and looking at and asking ourselves the question, how is this going to fit into my life? And so asking yourself, you know, if you're looking to buy something new, whether it's cosmetics or clothing or things in your home, how is this going to fit into your life? And so looking at breaking that perpetual cycle of overbuying it's not necessarily about buying less, but it's really about being intentional about what it is that you purchase. And so she ended, and I'll quote her by saying that she ended with saying, I had a lipstick shaped hole in my heart, but I could never fill it with enough lipsticks. It had to be filled with my own self worth. So bravo, Melodie. You're doing such beautiful things with Elate Cosmetics. We did receive some Elate Cosmetics in our goodie bags, and they're absolutely beautiful, incredible. They work really well. The colors are beautiful. So I invite you to, with that intention, when you're looking to purchase, if you need something new, to look at Elate Cosmetics. The next talk was a panel, and it was the Jilly Academy panel that was led by Melissa Leong. And on the stage were three women who have businesses and who are content creators and who are doing beautiful things, who went through the Jilly Academy, who were students of the Jilly Academy. And so it was beautiful to hear what their journeys were, learn from their experiences, and then see how they've come, see how their journey has evolved since being students of the Jilly Academy. So in that panel were Natalie Dusome, who is the female founder from a small town of Poppy and Peonies, which is a Métis-owned vegan brand. And you probably know Poppy and Peonies. I mean, it's such a beautiful Canadian brand, but she makes the most wonderful bags and purses. And she said that, she was working in fashion. She was from this small town. That was always her dream. She ended up working for a beautiful fashion brand. But after having her first child, she realized that women and moms, we need pockets. We need more storage. We need our bags and our purses and our carry-ons and our crossbodies to be more functional while still having that beauty and that aesthetic. And so Poppy and Peonies, their mission is to create these beautiful bags that still have function first and foremost. So it was incredible. And they also had a pop-up market. So those bags, I love them. I can't wait to get more. Intentionally, of course. Melodie, of course. The other two panelists, one was Anne Mock, who is a beautiful person. She is a blind storyteller. And since the experience of Academy on the City, we've been able to connect on social media. And her journey, I mean, she was not always blind. It was something that happened later in her life. And she is also a mom. She was a nurse for many years. She realized that she was going blind while still working full-time as a nurse, while having two children. She is an advocate for embracing possibilities, breaking barriers, and inspiring change. She's a TEDx speaker and an author. And she's really doing beautiful things to advocate for the blind and for people who need to be advocated for. One of the beautiful things that she said, and I'll quote her, was to follow the vision of your heart. And it was beautiful to hear from her and now to connect. She also gave us some tips for adding different alt text to your captions, to your social media posts. That's something that I'm taking with me as well, is to follow that, so that everyone and can see, read, hear, and make your social media feed more accessible. And the third person on the Jilly Academy panel was Breanne Allarie. And oh my gosh, she is so cool. I mean, her story is also really, really beautiful. And what came to be a really painful part of her life has now turned to bringing joy into people's lives. And so she had a lot of difficulty with depression and with suicidal thoughts. And as a mom, she went through some very challenging times. And now, as a content creator, she is bringing more beauty and more fun and more joy through her dance parties. She is she calls herself the CEO of Kitchen Dance Parties, and she laughs at herself. And she's really all about keeping it real. And so I loved meeting her. I loved hearing her story, and I hope that I can learn more from her again really soon. So that was the Jilly Academy panel. And we are winding down to two final speakers. One is Avery Francis, and then the final is Jillian Harris. And so with Avery Francis, now this I would say was probably the most hands-on in terms of tips and advice, because Avery is an HR expert. She has a company called Build with Bloom, and she gave so much great advice on entrepreneurship and building a business that would be a nice complement to her life. And through that, looking at your business, looking at entrepreneurship through a lens of building a better place to work today. And so looking to diversity being inviting people to the table, and inclusion asking them to dance. I loved that quote. Diversity is inviting people to the table. Sorry, diversity is inviting people to the party. Inclusion is asking them to dance. And so a lot of what she brings to the table is helping people feel safe at work through her team, through supporting women, through supporting people who need to feel safe and be supported. And she really cares deeply about building a different workplace situation. And she knows that women are being chipped away by little things. And so what she says is to structure your home, protect yourself, and protect your business. So even, depending on what your situation is, whether you own your own business, whether you have a team, maybe you have employees that are full-time or part-time, maybe you are contracting out, and maybe you are working in a workforce that you feel needs to review their own HR policies. She feels that having systems in place, having these policies in place, outlining the expectations and being very, very clear in all of these situations and circumstances is really doing yourself, your team, your business such a service because you have these things in place. And so whether you have a small business, whether you're a solopreneur, or you're working as part of a team, looking at her company, Build with Bloom, listening to the Girl Boss podcast, and listening to Avery speak was such a beautiful experience. And so I took a lot away from that, and looking to her HR policies and HR advice moving forward. And then, my friends, you know where that brings us, right? You know where we get into this next part. After our conversation with Avery Francis, there was a wine service where the bars were open, and we had some wine, some bubbly, some hors d'oeuvres. The pop-up market and beauty bar were open again, and I will say that during these breaks, it was a beautiful time, of course, to get up and stretch your feet. I met some of the most incredible people waiting in line at the bathroom. I actually met Avery Francis when we were at a coffee bar together. We were filling our coffee, and she was wearing all red, like a red blazer, a red skirt, red tights, and red shoes. And I just commented, like, you look amazing. I did not know who she was. I didn't know that she was a speaker, and I just had to share. And so we ended up having a conversation and chatting for a few minutes. And then I saw her up on the stage. And so these little breaks and these places to see and meet and learn about businesses and new people were really, really beautiful. I also had the opportunity to chat with Jillian Harris again during the day, and had the opportunity and the absolute honor and pleasure to give her the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner. That was really a highlight and a joy of my experience, because as you'll hear, she has really undergone a lot of challenges in the last few years, and she's breaking through to achieve more harmony in her life and sort of change her value system. And I felt that the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner would be the perfect accompaniment, because she is a busy woman. She's wearing many hats. She's juggling all of the things. And to be able to gift her that and let her know how much it has changed my life was truly a highlight. And so she was so grateful and so happy to do that. And it was funny because at that time, someone was handing her a Coke, and she's like, I don't drink Coke. I don't know why I asked for a Coke. I'm craving a Coke right now. But she was just, on cloud nine. She wasn't sleeping well. She was putting so much energy the night before. Like I told you in part one of this 2-part series, she spent the entire 4-hour gala standing in one place, talking to and taking pictures with every single guest at that event, all 400 attendees. And I was thinking, if it were me, I probably need more than a Coke. So no judgment, Jillian. Drink your Coke. I know that since that event, she was quite tired, and she did have to take part in some rest and some pampering and some authentic self-care. So that was a beautiful, beautiful highlight of my day. And that leads us to the keynote discussion from Miss Jillian Harris. And oh my gosh, just like the energy that she brings and that she commands without even, really wanting it. Like, she is just such a beautiful light. And of course, she got a standing ovation when she got on the stage, and she had a glass of wine in hand, and she was, kind of dancing, and everyone, there's music playing, we were all there to hear her and have you just share the love that we feel. And so one of the things that she said was that if she kind of knew how things would turn out for her, she's had such a full life, and I'm not going to go over the full keynote, which was like an hour long, and I'm not going to go over all the different parts of her life, but she comes from a very, very small town in northern Alberta, and she has built so much for herself. She now owns 3 businesses that are all 7-figure multi-million dollar businesses, one which is set to reach 8 figures this year. She's done so much. And she said that if she would have known that this is how things would turn out, she would have said, no fucking way. And she also said, if we're not too full of ourselves, then we're too empty in ourselves. And that was something that I really took. And I don't know if she was paraphrasing or quoting someone else, but she said, if we're not too full of ourselves, then we're too empty in ourselves. And her whole point in saying that is really that thank you to yourself. So she says, like, thank you to me, right? Thank you to me for achieving these things. Thank you to me for doing these things, and for going through and having all these different jobs and these different roles, and saying these things, and pushing myself and pushing through the fear. You have to be full of yourself. You have to feel that gratitude. You have to look at the accomplishments that you have and really thank yourself. So if we're not too full of ourselves, then we're too empty in ourselves. And I really, really love that. And she also says that we don't give ourselves enough credit, and that we really should all do this. Now, she had this beautiful slide deck, and she had these montages with different photos from different parts of her lives. And she's like, make yourself a little montage. It's about loving yourself, forgiving yourself, following your heart, pursuing joy and not approval. And that was the key theme of her keynote, was to pursue joy and not other people's approval. Whew, is that not incredible? That's something that we unpack here on the podcast so much. That's something that I've gone through, that I continue to go through, right? We have these people-pleasing tendencies. We have these overachieving tendencies. We want everything to be perfect. But when we pursue joy, when we look inward, instead of looking externally, instead of looking for that external validation, instead of trying to make everyone happy, that's how you can fill your cup. That's how you can have that inner sense of belonging that then allows you to go out into the world to create things and have so much purpose and share that joy with others. So she says that she was always so worried about others and trying to make everyone happy. She likes to say that she was the founding mother of online bullying, because through her experience in being on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, really these online forums were just starting to pop up. And so she was, as she says, one of the founding mothers of online bullying, because this is when these things started to sort of take a hold. And now we see it's so rampant in society today. But she really had to overcome looking at this negative feedback and saying that she wasn't going to look to that external circumstance or look to the approval of others, but really come from a place where she could find her own internal approvals. She looked to, going from the place of trying to do everything for everyone, building a team that was a lot bigger, trying to make everyone happy, trying not to offend anyone, trying to say yes to everything. She said that I knew the one thing that never changed was doing things from my heart. So she realized that she had to stand behind products and brands that she could really truly know were behind her, were in her heart. And so she had to say no to things. She had to change her value system and change the way that she operated her business. And so there was this period of change, of releasing. And from that point, she was able to pursue more joy instead of other people's approval. So she says, these days, I know what I want, and it's not to get other people's approval. She said that her business was losing its heartbeat and she wanted to have fun again. And even though her heart was broken at that point, at this low moment, she knew she had to follow it again. And so at that point, she said, I gave myself permission to not give a shit and to be authentic Jilly. We have to let go of this, of all of the external, and to freely feel like you are enough, that you can focus on your own joy, that you can pursue your own joy, and know that when you're doing that, when you're following your heart, pursuing your joy, that you will be full internally, and then you can pour it outwards. Not worried about who you're going to offend, not worried about getting it wrong, but being really true to yourself, being one of those key indicators for actually feeling joy, actually knowing that you're living your true life's purpose, and the success will follow that. So she did say that when she made these changes in her business, there were some quiet points, right? Where no, she maybe wasn't working for these big giant brands, but then eventually she started doing things where she could partner with small female-owned Canadian companies or support brands from lesser seen voices and people. And that's when the Jilly Box started. And so she's now able to support other businesses that are following their passion, pursuing their joy, and doing really, really incredible things in a way that now helps her succeed. So her keynote was an absolute icing on the cake of a beautiful 2-day experience. I've taken so many incredible things that I've shared with you today and in the part 1 episode of The Juggle is Real. I hope that you got some takeaways. I hope that something has ignited within yourself, that you found maybe a little spark, that you've asked yourself some questions, or you're going to now be a little bit more conscious about what comes up for you. If there's some ideas, or if there's some inspiration, or if there are some sort of judgments there that you're asking yourself and putting it under a bit of a closer lens, and that you've taken some of the advice from these incredible speakers and people who are on stage, and maybe that you can implement it, or that you can take action in some way, or you can just follow along in their journeys or support their small businesses and really gain that inner sense of belonging. If you did enjoy this episode, I would so appreciate if you could write me a short review on Apple Podcasts so that we can reach more people and share this incredibly inspiring message with others. If you can share it with a friend, maybe a bestie who needs to ignite their inner spark as well. And, do all the things, rate it, share it to your social media, send me a DM. I received the most beautiful message from a listener after the part 1 episode aired, and she looked to actually examining her own judgments that she felt about maybe allowing herself and giving herself permission to have experiences like this one. And it meant the world to me. So if you have any thoughts or any takeaways or any key insights that you got from this episode, there is a link to my Instagram in the podcast notes. There's also my email address that you can send me an email. I would love to hear from you. And don't forget, in our 100th episode coming up next, we have the incredible opportunity to hear from peak performance coach Hina Khan. So stay tuned. I can't wait to see you back for another episode of The Juggle is Real. And until then, take good care.